Hey everyone, it's Robert. I am going to talk about refinancing today. I'm recording this video as the coronavirus impact is making its way through the markets, and as a result of that, interest rates have dropped. So it's kind of timely, but the stuff we're going to talk about today is really applicable at any time you're looking at a refinance. So refinance at its most basic is taking existing debt and getting a new loan to pay off that debt, ideally either at lower rates or longer term. Generally, the two reasons you would refinance any debt is the payments are too high, in which case you would try to lower those payments, even though you may pay more overall. The other reason is you just want to get rid of the debt as fast as possible, and refinancing can facilitate that with a lower interest rate. In order to kind of make this calculation, I'm going to use the example of a mortgage, and the first step is to take your monthly payment, your principal and interest only. You have a payment usually that's called a PITI payment. It's principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. We're going to ignore taxes and insurance, so you find out what your principal and interest payment are. Then you go online and find out roughly what the new rates are, and you pull up a simple calculator online. I like the one at bankrate.com. And you plug it in, you plug in the balance of your debt, you plug in the new estimated interest rate, and it calculates what the new payment would be. And if you're strictly focused on cash flow, then it's a pretty easy calculation. You look at the difference, you determine what the new closing cost would be, because remember, we're talking about a mortgage for the example, and you divide the closing cost by your monthly savings from the new payment, and that gives you the amount of months that you need to live in the house for the refinance to make sense from recouping your closing cost standpoint. So if you plan to live there a while, it just usually makes even more sense. But if you're planning to move, or you're not able to make that to get that many dollars in savings each month, it may not make sense. But if you do this, let's take a hypothetical example. You have maybe 20 years left on your mortgage, and you refinance into a 30-year mortgage, which you can do. That would absolutely lower your monthly payment. But by extending the term out, you may end up paying more than you otherwise would have. So there's kind of two parts to this. There's cash flow, which is important, and for some people, that's by far the most important issue given their circumstances at the time. But a lot of you are going to be doing this calculation to figure out how you're going to pay less in total. And the way you do that calculation, so you've already determined you're going to live there long enough to recoup closing costs. You've already determined you're going to have some monthly savings if you refinance. So now what you do is you multiply the new payment by, however, we're going to assume 30 years, but if it's a different term, then you multiply it by the term, and that's the total amount you will pay. You're going to do that, and then you're going to go back to the loan you have now, your existing loan, and you're going to multiply out however many more payments you have at the payment you're making right now. And if you've made like extra principal payments at some point, this may get a little more complicated than that, but otherwise you just multiply out how many payments you have left, and that will give you two answers for how much you will pay in total, and you're going to be able to see which one is going to save you money overall. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. The rates are about as low as they've ever been right now. They could go lower. I don't know. I don't claim to know, but it is a good time to look at this. And one more little note. So let's say, you got a house maybe a couple years ago. There's 28 years left on your mortgage, and you refinance into a 30-year. And it still makes sense. You did the calculation we just talked about. But one thing you may be able to do is continue to make the exact same payment that you're making now on the new loan, and this would result in a small principal reduction each time you make that payment, and that would really, over time especially, that would really lower your total cost. So just keep that in mind. If you're in it for just eliminating as much interest as you can pay, try not to extend the term. That's where people can sometimes get in trouble, and they've just started their debt over. Even though they got a lower monthly payment, they're going to pay more overall. So I hope this was helpful, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks.